Hi,
Hi,
it's nice to finally meet you.
great to connect. I've been really impressed by what you're doing.
Thank you, thank you. So
Do
should
you
we
want to,
introduce
do you
ourselves?
want
Say
to,
hi, I guess.
do you want to tell me a little bit about it and where
Sure.
you're at with it? Hello? I lost sound.
Hello, is it working now?
Yeah.
Okay, it was echoing. Are we? Okay, sorry. We still live? I think. Correct. So yeah, I guess if you want to explain first a bit about Common Objective, since I'm sure maybe a lot of people don't know about it.
Sure, absolutely. And as I mentioned, really impressed with what you're doing. I'm Tamsin Lejeune, founded the Ethical Fashion Forum back in 2006. And we were really created to support designers like yourself and others, business owners, to operate in the most sustainable way whilst maintaining a great product that's produced commercially and can sustain itself financially.
Mhm.
So a few years ago, in 2016, we raised funding from industry to launch Common Objective, which is a platform again designed to support designers and business owners everywhere to operate in the most sustainable way. Um, the platform has two main things that govern the way it works. Firstly, you can sign, it's a bit like a match.com. You can sign up, specify what you need, and it matches you with information, with training, with suppliers, with buyers. Um, and it also weights users. So our mission is to make it easier for any business and any entrepreneur anywhere to operate in a more sustainable way. So the more sustainable the business, the higher its search ranking. The goal with that is that it's easier for you to find the most sustainable suppliers, and also it's easier for you as a sustainable business to get more customers and more sales. So that's the gist of it, and love to help with some of the thoughts that you have, and hear more about you.
Yeah, so basically my specialty is hand painted textiles. So we work with white silks and then it's approached as a canvas basically, and every single piece is made entirely by hand. There's no digital printing involved. There's not even screen printing involved. It's literally just manual application of dyes onto fabric. Obviously, dyes as well is something that I've been working on, seeing like how I can use dyes that are perhaps less yeah, have less pollution consequences and so on and so forth, because these are chemicals that we are talking about. So that's been something that I'm still really looking into tackling. In terms of other ways that we have focused on sustainability, I would say the key points would be, for example, material sourcing. So we were working with commercial silks before, so large wholesale commercial silk orders, and now we are working with organizations in India that are trying to support cottage industries to keep those alive, and are actually training entire villages to work in handloom and weaving. And so that's kind of how I thought, okay, let's go back to the source of the product, which is the white silk, and then work our way up from there. So that, I think, I'm very, very happy with the suppliers we have in that respect. Um, and then in terms of the garment manufacturing, I started working with a factory called Master G India. It's actually a fellow Parsons graduate called Gayatri Jolie, and she launched a training program called Master G. And it's really funny because actually Master G in Hindi means head pattern maker, but traditionally in India, that job is literally always a man. So she made it Master G as in G for girl instead of JI, which is like sir. And so the whole thing is that she trained up to 500 women to do this job that is literally just a man's job in India. And then after training them, she opened this center for actual production for small designers across India. And so I jumped on board with that. And so we're very happy with our production in that respect. That being said, of course, there's obviously so much more that we can still do. We try to produce very small quantities because everything's done by hand. So actually, scalability is something that's quite tricky, even just by the nature of the process. And also, in terms of zero waste, we don't throw away any of the painted fabric, because also that would be waste, but also it's very precious because of the amount of time and work that's done. And it can always be used for other things such as trims. And nowadays, actually, we're making a lot of masks, as is everyone. But yeah, so those are some of the things that we're doing. But I would obviously be interested in hearing if you have any other yeah, suggestions, or because often I think it's so easy to throw the word sustainability around, and everyone loves using that word. And I think what's happening is a lot of people, just to be able to say they're sustainable, will modify the tiniest process in their huge operation, and that one process will be sustainable, and so then they're like, okay, we're a sustainable brand. And I understand, because I wouldn't say I'm 100% sustainable either, but I think it would be interesting to understand what are the things you should tackle first in order of priority.
Yes, thank you. And it is a broad term, sustainability. I mean, we broadly define it as maximizing benefits to people and minimizing impact on the environment. And of course,
Right.
where do you start there? It's a complex. We do recommend that you be really focused to start with, because you just can't do it all. And I wanted to share you with a resource that we have on on Common Objective, that can help you and anyone who's listening in. Currently, at the moment, during COVID, we have made Common Objective, all the premium content on it, completely free, actually, until the end of October. So you can join for free anyway, but you can also access all of these resources to help you to integrate sustainability and solve some of the questions that you're asking right now. So I'm just going to navigate you to that section, and also to answer your question on how you know what to choose. I can show you a part of the site which represents that. So here I am on You sign up. It takes you a few minutes to sign up. You'll specify what you need, and you land on a dashboard where you're matched with information, with training, with suppliers, with buyers. I'm in the Learn section, so you can see the drop down. And build a 3D business. That means, how do you build a business that integrates sustainability with commercial considerations? And just because of your particular question, I've navigated to sustainability roadmaps. So I'm going to show you defining your vision. So this roadmap. You can go in here and you can just download the PDF, which is a template, which shows you. My internet's a little slow because I'm using several things. It shows you, takes you step by step through the process of how you might define what matters to you as a sustainable business. So setting your key objectives, gives you a template you can fill in, and then you can upload onto your co-profile, and also gives you some quite interesting examples of other businesses as to how they have integrated sustainability, how they've communicated it. Communication is really important. We found that some research we did for the UN a few years ago found that less than, in fact, there's research on right now, less than 1% of fashion that's on the high street is calling itself sustainable or ethical, and yet there's a growing demand for it. And a lot of that is because designers and brands are a bit reluctant to talk about what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's almost more important than ever. We have a whole section on the sustainability issues here, so you can get answers on some of the things that you might be looking for. And also, just to show you, in response to your question about sustainability. So in this section, we have a whole lot on sustainability definitions. So you can define what you're doing and select what matters to you and represent it. And if you create a business profile, so I'll show you some of our brands on here. If you create a business profile, so Mud Jeans recently got an award with us. These businesses are ranked in accordance with what sustainability information they've put in there. So you can see they've got all these icons from setting out what they're doing around different things here. Love to recommend you to do that if that would be helpful. And I can also, as a user, see what any of those mean. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. But hopefully that's answered some of your questions.
No, it's very interesting. I also actually just noticed one of the sections that you showed had a social component and an environmental component. And that's also one of the things that I find interesting, because when you talk about sustainability, it's very much both both things, right? And so one of the questions I've always asked is, again, nothing should be a priority and everything should be a must, but I guess certain brands are more focused on like ethically producing, which is a more social aspect. And then other brands are more focused on actually only using materials that are environmentally friendly, for example. And so I find those two aspects quite interesting.
I think your messaging and the way that you promote your brand wherever it is can work absolutely in tandem and enhance your sustainability message. So the most effective businesses we see operating in this sector have almost made they've used the sustainability message to change behavior through their activities and through their reach, and they've been quite aligned. So we do find that businesses tend to choose one or the other. And that doesn't mean you need to not do the other.
Right. It's just focus a bit.
Yeah, it's simply keeping it really simple for the consumer.
Sure.
I mean, we often recommend, from a communication perspective, Reformation, who've been extremely successful, and there's around every brand there's controversy around what they're doing, and they may not be doing so much in some areas. But they've made sustainability their issue, and through their broad marketing reach, it's worth signing up actually so you can see some of their comms.
I think anyways. Sorry,
they're really changing behavior just through their comms, not just through selling a product.
Right, exactly. Well, anyways, nowadays I think people not just buying single products anymore; they're following a whole. Like you buy into a brand. And it's almost you follow them, you follow what they do. And you're buying into a lifestyle kind of and a set of values. But what I was going to say is, a lot of people are attacking brands for maybe doing one sustainable thing or two versus being transparently sustainable across the board. But what do you think about that? Because I feel like there has to be a starting point. So it's not a bad thing that at least doing one or two things. And everyone's so quick to judge.
I think it can be quite unhelpful. If we have any journalists or press or media tuning in, it's something we quite often get questions and approached by journalists and media when they found a brand that puts itself out there, and some big names put themselves out there as sustainable, and they'll be questioning some of the issues behind that. And our angle is always, look, don't shoot them down, because the more that happens in the press, the more difficult it is for brands to openly represent what they're doing and share it and be transparent about it. Nobody has nailed it. Nobody's
exactly. And at least they're advocating for at least 5 good things, if not 20. So it's a start, I think, in some way. But sorry, no, go ahead.
I think your point about it being something that consumer loyalty is an interesting one. So our research demonstrates that while being sustainable and promoting that you're sustainable may not make a huge difference at point of sale.
Right.
When it comes to the loyalty of the consumer, the likelihood to come back and to treasure your brand, and it really makes a difference. And we're starting to see a phenomenon where there's a set of fashionistas who have made it their mission to only buy and wear sustainable products. And there's nothing more empowering than wearing a fantastic piece of fashion that is also changing lives. And that message, I think, is one that we can get more out there.
Damaging lives, exactly. Something, yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think, actually, I've had an experience of working with certain processes, both sustainably and unsustainably. So when I started, what's very recently, like 2 years back when I graduated, and I was just scrambling to find producers. I'm not based in India, but being half Indian, and a lot of my production is there, and a lot of my business is there. And so I initially worked with these sort of really large factories that were, they would make an exception for me and do small quantities, but in reality, they were used to working for really, like thousands and thousands of pieces at a time. And I wasn't taken seriously. My product wasn't made properly. I had so many issues. And I found that when I started working with smaller suppliers that actually they cost a bit more, but the way they were doing things, I could go to the factory, I could spend the day there. It was a nice space. I knew the people there were happy. They seemed happy at least. And it just really changed the experience even for me. So I think, Yeah, I think it's interesting for designers to realize that it's not just a marketing tool, because you're right, it is to communicate that you're a sustainable brand nowadays does kind of give you brownie points, let's say, but you actually do feel better because you end up working with better people. It just happens. Yeah.
We partner with the World Fair Trade Organization. I don't know if you've come across them, but we have a lot of WFTO suppliers on our site, many of whom are groups of artisans or smaller producers, really transforming lives for those who work with them. And they've recently done a study. It might be worth you having a look.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a visitor.
I have a cat as well, but she's
yeah, 2 kittens in the house at the moment. So WFTO have recently done a survey of their members, whereby they've demonstrated that the longevity and financial sustainability of businesses that are members of the WFTO network is enormously higher than the standards, size, matched on size and type of product.
Well, that's what's so interesting is because your site, I kept, when I was reading it, I kept seeing that your main focus is basically that a lot of people think that going sustainable is just higher cost and lesser profit and basically reducing your commercial survival, but it's a marketing tool. So I like the fact that you're basically, advertising sustainability as something that shouldn't be this thing to overcome. It shouldn't be a challenge. It should be something that can be viewed as something that grows your business, not like we have to be sustainable, we're going to lose some money, but it's a good thing to do. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think this is more come to the fore with COVID-19 as well. Yeah. The fact that that you raised environmental and social, and up until COVID hit, only a few months ago, environmental was top of the agenda for everybody, and climate change was at the front of everyone's mind, and social was barely mentioned. Yeah. But since COVID, we've seen the tragic effect of it upon suppliers, yes. And also it's brought to the fore just how unfair and exploitative our global fashion industry is. That the vast majority of the risk taken by suppliers, and the situation in Bangladesh is horrendous. And I think that's brought that to the fore. It's no longer possible. The suppliers we work with are saying we are not going to work this way anymore. And what you say about small suppliers is really key. Some of the most impressive business models are happening, and some of the most impressive traction and forward thinking is happening by the suppliers themselves. So I'm really pleased to be speaking to this audience through Helsinki Fashion Week, because I think independent designers, small to mid-sized brands can really make a difference and get us back to what inspires us all. I'm sure that most people who are listening into this session are interested in fashion because they love design, they love the creativity. There's something really evocative about a fantastic fashion piece. Mm-hmm. And the work to do that should be fulfilling from one end of the supply chain to the other. And we've almost created a monster with an industry where homogeneity is the way things happen, lots of product produced cheaply, nothing really exciting. And it's designers like you who can reverse that trend.
Well, I just also find that, again, small designers, we make small quantities and we don't overproduce before knowing if it's going to be sold, because we have that sort of financial consciousness because everything is on us. Whereas really large brands, again, it's about producing quantities that are unreal and then realizing that you have so much dead stock, and that's, the situation with sales and all of that. So in a sense, yeah, if smaller designers produce less with smaller suppliers, that would be the key. But then, of course, there's the question of our products are then priced higher than fast fashion, for example. And so then comes in the debate where I get into this debate sometimes with people where people tell me, but Helena, maybe sustainability is actually a luxury that a lot of people can't afford. And that's why we're stuck in this vicious cycle. Yeah. But what do you think about that?
Well, I think I would look at it from another angle, in that 50 years ago, we had a very different fashion system. And the current system we operate within has been created by the large fashion businesses because it's self-serving, because it's very lucrative to encourage people. Psychologically, it's much easier to buy lots of things that are low cost
than one
thing that you spend the same. Yeah. And it's been proven that low value retailers, the effect is that the people who may be on low budgets and low incomes spend more.
Yeah.
So it's a moot point, and I think we need to be looking at it in two directions. First of all, making it easy and exciting and inspiring for consumers to choose alternatives, and then looking at how we change the system. And I think Fashion Revolution is exciting from this perspective. I hope you're involved in your suppliers.
I'm familiar with them, yeah.
But the social media reach of that campaign is huge, 750 million over. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to be competing with the media reach of some of the biggest fashion brands in the world, who are surrounding us by adverts telling us to buy cheaply and buy frequently. And we can change it. We need to unite, and we also need to look at how we address global regulations on this. I hope COVID will accelerate this a little.
Yeah.
But this should be at the WTO. There should be considerations for how we create a sustainable system. That the concept of fast fashion and sustainability are entirely in contradiction with each other. Yes. And the message, we work with many representatives from some of the biggest fast fashion retailers, and they're, as individuals, committed and dedicated and desperate to operate more sustainably, but they work often within a juggernaut,
of course,
within which they can't change things. And we need to have enlightened leadership at the top, not just saying we're going to close the loop and continue with the same system, producing lots, but feel that we have less impact. We need to change the system. We need to have the H&Ms of this world renting on the high street.
Yeah, no, it's true. If you had to say 5 things, first 5 things to address if someone comes to you and they're just like, I just started a business, let's say they haven't looked at all its sustainability, what would those be?
Yes, so the first one would definitely be focus. Okay. We very often get businesses who'll come from a sustainability perspective first, and getting the product right is at least as important. Find your niche, find your market niche. Secondly, I'd say speak to the buyers. Don't assume that you're not going to get help, that you can't find help for this. We found that the most successful brands have almost often brought in the expertise they need, especially people like you. You've got a fantastic product, you've got an exciting story behind it. People will come forward, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel and do everything yourself. Bring on board that expertise to answer those questions. Speak to the buyers. So I had this amazing, I previously ran a fair trade fashion brand producing out of Bangladesh back in the early 2000s. And a piece of advice I had from a mentor was, go into the shops, and a little more difficult now, but starting to open up. Go into the shops on a Tuesday morning. You'll often find the buyer is there. Show them your samples and get their feedback.
Interesting. I would never have guessed Tuesday morning.
They know far better. Otherwise, you're working on guesswork. You're never going to know as much as a buyer who day in, day out hears from their customers. And so I took my samples in. They gave me some feedback. The way I'd done them was not really aligned. I went back to my producers, produced another set of samples, and they sold out. So, and I guess finally it would be to join Co.
We'll do that as soon as we can.
Amazing. You can connect with me on the site. It's like a LinkedIn. Connect with others. Make use of that network. We're an amazing network of people like Helena and others. You can win an award. So I don't know if you've created a profile, but we'd love you to.
No, I didn't
because we're launching our awards quite soon. And that means all you need to do is create a business profile, which is free. You're automatically entered into our awards, and that gives you an uplift on your ranking, and we give you some press and social media. Yeah, we're all.
I have a couple
that's here to help.
I want to pursue, so hopefully I'll find the right people that I can make that happen with.
Yeah, and do stay in touch and connect with me on Co. Perhaps I can help. There's one other recommendation I had for you, because you were asking specifically about
fabric,
leftover waste fabric.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're connected to Ursula de Castro, one of the founders of Fashion Revolution. You can find her on Co and connect with her on Co also. Ursula de Castro, I'd be happy to make a personal recommendation, or to suggest that she contact you also, because it's her her pride and joy and mission to support businesses like yours, and I know she'll be impressed with what you're doing. But she's the origin. She's the queen of remaking. With From Summer was her brand, where she built relationships with Italian factories and
Wonderful.
the brand before anyone else was doing this.
Okay, very cool. Thank you so much for your time. And I guess our time is up, I think. From what they, yeah.
Well, since we're still on here, what are your next steps?
Yeah, so my next steps are I'm actually going to work on a furniture collaboration. So because I've been doing, I don't really even think of myself really as a fashion brand. It's more a textile design studio in a rather more interdisciplinary and broad sense. So I've really been trying to see how I can apply that work into the spaces of like home, art installation, yeah, so furniture, home product, so on and so forth. I did a couple of projects in the last 2 years with that, but now we're actually working on building a big piece of furniture and just seeing how that would work.
Oh.
So that's one thing I'm quite excited about because it's completely brand new. Yeah.
Are you finding that's easier from a supplier perspective? Do you find that?
Well, I'm not dealing with a supplier in this case because it's a very dear friend of mine who actually just launched this furniture company with his partner in Indonesia. So we're actually manufacturing all of this in Indonesia. Again, it's a small atelier literally by the water with like 4 people, and they're making all this beautiful furniture. It's near Java, I believe. And so he's already started launching his furniture, and he said, okay, let's do a collaboration. So I just have to supply the fabric, which is so nice for a change.
Yeah, there's so many things to consider with a fashion brand, aren't there?
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye to our audience. Hope to connect with you on commonobjective.co.
Yes, thank you.